Hey guys, in this video I'll be showing you the game I made in a week in the first Brackeys Game Jam of 2020. So a few weeks ago, the Brackeys team hosted the first Game Jam of the year and it revolved around the theme, Holes. I came up with different ideas and landed on the concept of making a top-down shooter game where you play as the black hole of space and you shoot dark matter and use abilities to destroy the white holes. Now that I have a game plan, I started on making some of the assets first. Since I can't draw, I just used circles in different shapes I could find online to help build a black hole. I also made a small triangle that I used to indicate and follow my mouse so the player knows where to shoot. After, getting the animation done was pretty easy. I just used the animation tab and made the aura do a spinny thing to give it that black hole effect. So once I finished the first version of the black hole, I obviously needed to move it around the level. I wrote a simple script using input.getAxis horizontal and vertical and put the speed of the player to around about 10. After that, I created a camfollow script and attached it to the player. Right now, it's hard to tell in the game sim if it's moving or not, but looking at the scene above, you can see that the camera is following the player wherever he's going. Now the basics are out of the way, I wanted to add a bit of flavor to the game, and what better way to do that by adding some post-processing effects. I installed the post-processing package and played around with the settings till it made me want to say,
nice.
After I was happy with how the game looked, I went on to make the enemy. I went back to Photoshop and created the enemy sprite. I liked it so much I decided to just change the player sprite similar to the enemy but have different colors. I decided to use the old sprite as part of the first ability I will create later on, and all I did was just add an animation changing its size. I then went on to getting the bullet prefab that the player gets to shoot. It was simply just a sprite with a trail renderer to indicate that it's some sort of projectile. I attached the shoot script to the player where it would instantiate the bullet prefab at the tip of the triangle, since that's where I put the spawn point of the game object. After that, the enemy needed some work and I proceeded to add health so that it would be destroyed by the bullet. Going back into Photoshop, I made a little health UI so they'll show how much damage the player has done to the enemies. I then hooked it up with the system I had in place and was very pleased with how it turned out. At this point, I was almost done with the enemy. All I needed to do was have them spawn randomly around the player and make them move towards the player and do damage. With getting them to spawn and move, I still needed to add health to the player so that the enemies would do damage. After quite some time, I was able to accomplish this and even got the player's health to deplete over time, which wasn't really that hard. There was about 18 hours left and I still had a lot of tasks to do to make the game that I originally intended. I already knew I wouldn't finish this game in time, but I still wanted to finish what I started. The final day working on the jam, I started with adding the collectibles you get once you kill an enemy. These collectibles is what replenishes the player's health. I had to play around with the values since it was either too difficult to survive or it was too broken and it was impossible to be killed. To add a bit more spice and look polished, I gave the player and enemy camera effects, whether it was adding death particles or camera shake every time the bullet made contact with the enemy. Judging by the way it looked so far, I was quite happy with how it turned out. There was 44 minutes left to the jam and I was gutted because I knew I wasn't close to being done. Back to Photoshop, I worked on the UI and ability icons that the player gets to use throughout the game. The first ability is spawning a dark hole that destroys enemies that collides with it. The second ability is gaining rapid fire, allowing the player to shoot multiple bullets at a fast pace. And the third ability boosts the player's movement speed for a specific duration. I was only able to set up the UI and the key presses and having them go on cooldown, which then concluded the time of the game jam. I went to sleep still sad, but was keen to finish the game the following day.
The next day,
I managed to finish all the abilities but not to a polished state. Nevertheless, I was happy that I pulled through even though I missed the deadline. Anyways, that's all for this video. I did have fun making the game and still plan on joining future jams and hopefully have a better time management. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!